I come from a lower middle class background. So for me, while picking a career path, obviously there was the financials that had to be considered. I needed to ensure financial security. But then when I examined my own ambitions, I came to understand that mere financial security would not do anything for me. I needed to do something more. And I felt that I should give back something to society, or I should be able to do something creative for the society as such through my career. So this is when so all these things factored in, and by the time I was taking my 10th standard board exams, I had fairly determined that yes, I will be pursuing a career in the civil service. So by the time I had read up to a certain extent about this career path, I had read up. I was aware about what I should do after I finished my schooling. I was aware about the civil services examination. So in the year 2018, that was when I completed my graduation. That is when I joined. Now you guys might think I'm fast forwarding, but just give me a second. I'll get back to where I left you. So in 2018, I finished my college education. I graduated, and then I enrolled for a full-time civil services coaching program at Trivandrum, okay, Thiruvananthapuram. And for the past 2 years, I have been indulging in full-time civil services preparation. And I've also been teaching at certain institutes, including at Rise to IAS. I've been their faculty for the past 2 months also. So yeah, I would say that for the past 2 years, I've been indulging in full-time civil services preparation. But if that was the only part of the story, then definitely I would not be here talking to you. Because my preparation did not begin 2 years before. My preparation did not begin in 2018, although that was when I started dedicating myself full time for this process. Rather, my preparation began in the year 2013. That the year I appeared for my 10th standard board examinations, because that was when I had decided that I would pursue my career in civil services. I would be preparing for the examination. So let's just take a short gap, and let me just tell you what the civil services are. Now, a lot of you might definitely know what this is, but then as I mentioned earlier, I did see some really young and inquisitive minds on this video call. So for a lot of you guys, you might not know exactly what the civil services might. So right now, the Indian civil services are the premier government services under the government of India, as well as the government of all the other states. So what we would basically do is that you take care, you assist the people who chart out the policies and execute the policies for the governance of this country. So whether it be in the general administration of the country, or whether it be in the foreign external affairs or foreign services, or whether it be when it comes to the income tax or any other forms of taxation, or whether it be whether it is related to the regulation of the corporate sector, the companies, or the implementation of the Companies Act, whether it comes to the postal sector or the civil account sector. So you name the sector, the civil services are there. So we might see the people who come into the public eye normally tend to be the ministers, the elected representatives who run the government. But behind these ministers, there is definitely a team of bureaucrats, a team of civil servants who are working and who are assisting and who are providing inputs to the different policies that go into the government and which are delivered by the government apparatus. So right now, the Indian civil services consist of 25 different services. So these include around 20 Group A services, and within the Group A services itself, there are 2 All India services, which are the Indian Administrative Service as well as the Indian Police Service. Okay, so then you also have the Indian Foreign Service, which is associated with the embassies and consulates of India all over the globe. Okay, and then after that there are around I'm sorry, and after there are around 18 to 20 Group A services, and there are also around 4 to 5 Group B services. So in total there are around 25 to 26 civil services, specific civil services, which comprise the total Indian civil services. So, and these all have a common examination, which is called the Indian Civil Services Examination. and which is conducted by the Union Public Service Commission. Okay, so I think that gives you a gist about the Indian civil services. Okay, and so by the time I had finished my 10th standard in 2013, I had decided that yes, I would be going in for the civil services. And I would say that my preparation actually began in that year in 2013. So for the past 7 years, everything that I've done up to this point has had something relevant to the civil services in it. So whether it be my choice of a degree, which subject to pursue during my degree, or which college to go to, or what books to read, or what activities to indulge in. For most part of it, there was this factor of the civil services, the thought that I would be appearing for the civil services examination. That was always there at the back of my mind, and I would say that that has helped me immensely when I start. And I noticed that when I started my preparation, full-time preparation in 2018. So we'll get into that more, but let me just pull up a presentation to make things more easy. Just give me a second. So somebody has asked me why I sorry, why I wanted to be a scientist. Okay, so as I said, I was deeply attracted by Professor Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam sir. So it was due to my what do you say, my attraction towards him and his work both at the ISRO as well as at the DRDO as well as in atomic research. So it's because of those things that I thought about becoming a scientist when I was in, about to start high school or before that. Okay, so yeah, Mussoorie. So yeah, I think the first few slides are pictures of the Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy of Administration. So this is where the IAS probationers, the Indian Administrative Service probationers, the people who end up becoming the district collectors as well as the secretaries to the government and in the different ministries, as well as even the chief secretaries and the cabinet secretaries. So this is where those people get their training. The Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. It's at Mussoorie in Uttarakhand. A very beautiful place. And I hope to be there someday. Okay, so I gave you an idea about why I chose the civil services. Now, usually at around the time when the results are published every year, the civil services winners hog some of the limelight, and a lot of success stories from humble beginnings all get circulated through social media as well as through the other forms of media. So last year we had Sridhanya ma'am, who cleared the civil services with the rank of 410. She was the first tribal woman from the state of Kerala to clear the civil service examination, and right now she is serving as an assistant collector in Kozhikode. And then this is Gokul, who cleared this year. So he is visually impaired, but he cleared the examination this year, and he will also be joining the civil services. So both of us had cleared it in the same year. Gokul S. Okay, so as I told you, it is the examination is conducted by the Union Public Service Commission, and it is a 1 year long process. Sorry. So somebody has also asked what magazines I read. Okay, I'll get to that part. I will surely get to that part after giving you a brief overview of the examination as such. Okay. So we'll start out by the age limits. Now this is something that is very important when you are preparing for this examination. You need to know about the eligibility for the examination. So simply put, the eligibility is that you should be at least 21 years old if you want to take the examination, and you should have a valid degree. So a degree which is recognized in India, you need to have a valid bachelor's degree. A bachelor's degree would do. Okay, so provided that you have a bachelor's degree, and then that you are at least 21 years old in the year that you are taking the examination. If these two conditions are followed, then you can take the examination. So I took the examination when I was 21. I was almost 22. So I was 21 when I registered and appeared for the first level of the examination. So if you belong to the open category, the general category, you can take the examination up to the age of 32. If you're an OBC category, you can take it up to the age of 35. SC/ST is 37, and if you have differently abled, you can take it up to the age of 42. So you have 6 attempts. If you belong to the first category, the open merit or the general category, you have 6 attempts. You can take the exam 6 times. And if you belong to the OBC, you can take it 9. And for the other 2 categories, there is no restriction on the number of attempts that you can take, provided that you fall in the required age limit. Okay. No, right. And for the past few years, the civil services are definitely getting a lot of attention in the media, especially the cinema. So as I mentioned to you earlier, so these are the services which come under the Indian civil service. These are the services to whom the recruitment take place through the civil service exam. So somebody's asked me, which civil service sector are you in? So actually my results came out in August 5th. So the allocation process is just happening, and I would know exactly to which service I am getting placed in the coming weeks, maybe in 2 to 3 weeks from now. So yeah, how did I feel when the results were out? Yeah, definitely it was a feeling of satisfaction. Yeah, and but then I am also taking the exam this year as well to improve my rank. So I knew that I would be taking the exam again, but it was like a partial success on my part, if you ask me, because I had made it to the rank list, and then I had but then I knew that I still had a long way to go to reach the service that I desired. Okay, so this time I will not be getting the service which I want to get. So I'll get another Group A service. I'll be joining that service, but I'll be taking the examination again. Okay. So as I said, we have 2 All India services, the Indian Administrative Service and the Indian Police Service. So in both these services, you will be assigned to a specific state cadre, and you will also be working with the central government on deputation. So half of your career, you will be in a specific state of India, and for the remaining part of your career, you will be associated with some national, associated with the government of India, the union government, the central government. Again, then you have the Group A services, foremost of which is the Indian Foreign Service. Now, many of you might have associated with people from this service. They are employed as ambassadors. They even work in the consulates, and they represent our nation in various international fora. So then you have the IRS, the income tax, as well as the IRS, Indian Revenue Service, Customs and Central Excise. Then you have the P&T accounts, audit and accounts, and so on. So you can see the entire list on your screens right now. And apart from these services, you also have the Group B services, which also come under the central government. And even if you end up getting into the Group B services, within a period of 8 to 10 years, you can be promoted and you can become a Group A civil servant. Okay. So, and each of these services are critical in the when it comes to governance. So you will obviously command a lot of prestige, and you will also, apart from that, moreover, you will be able to do a lot of stuff that is relevant for society and that is relevant for policy. You will be associated with the the most important power sections, and you will be able to get an insight into policy formation, as well as you will be able to contribute towards policy formation as your years in the service increase. Okay. So whichever service you get into, you will have an immense opportunity to interact with those in power. You will have an immense opportunity to control policy in that specific sector. Okay. All right. So the IAS. Somebody asked me which is my favorite service. Definitely, my favorite service is the Indian Administrative Service, and I think for most people, this is the most famous civil service. So when you say that you are writing the Indian Civil Services examination, some people, a lot of people generally assume that you are writing it for the IAS. So many people might not know the name, the Indian Civil Services examination. What they think is that it is the Indian Administrative Service examination or the IAS examination. So the IAS, as you all know, is the premier civil service under the government of India. So, and it is also the most sought after service in this examination. So every year for the UPSC civil service examination, around 10 lakh people appear. 10 lakh people register for the examination, and around 8 lakhs or 10 lakh people appear for this examination. Okay. So these people, and from these people, around 800 or 900 people, or sometimes around 1,000 people make the rank. So this year, around 829 people made the final rank. So in these 829 people who, in these 829 seats, around 180 of them will be getting the Indian Administrative Service, which is the most sought after service in this examination. So you go to Mussoorie for your training, and then you get appointed as an assistant collector of any district. Okay, the assistant collector, that is your starting post in the IAS. And the most popular post within this IAS is at the time when you are appointed as the district magistrate or the district collector. Okay, so the district collector again is one of the most visible parts of the governance apparatus in India, and this particular vocation commands a great deal of prestige, and it helps you to contribute immensely as well to society. Okay. And the IAS officers go on deputation to the central government, as well as they work in many international organizations as well, whether it be the UN or the World Bank or the ILO or any other prominent international organization, and as well as in bilateral organizations or bilateral mechanisms as well. So the IAS is basically the lifeline of the civil services, and these people, the personnel in this service, are associated with the most critical functions of the government. Okay, so our foreign affairs minister or the external affairs minister, so he was appointed as the external affairs minister, Sri Jaishankar, in 2019. So the peculiar fact about his appointment was that he was India's topmost diplomat. So he was an IFS officer, an Indian Foreign Service officer. So the IFS is equally desired when it comes to the civil services. If there is one service which is almost equally desired compared to the IAS, it is the Indian Foreign Service. So again, it offers tremendous scope for you to contribute towards the society. In the fact, this is most experienced by the expatriates or the NRIs. I guess a lot of you or your parents or might have been associated with Indian Foreign Service offices or with the consulates or embassies in the country. So these people are the top people when it comes to these services, the foreign service. So and again, in a lot of international fora, as well as in bilateral engagements, we have the IFS officers who are representing our nation. And yeah, you get to enjoy a lot of extra perks if you are part of the IFS. Apart from getting a good pay, you get to spend a lot of time in foreign locations, and you get a lot of challenging assignments, as well as a lot of assignments where you can learn and interact with different people from across the globe, and you can contribute towards the national interest. Okay, so Indian Foreign Service, usually there are around 24 to 30 vacancies every year. So from and there are lakhs of people competing for this examination. So some people, somebody is asking, there are some exam related doubts. So I will get to those doubts later on. Don't worry. I will get to those doubts after just doing a small brief about it. So when it comes to the external affairs or the foreign service, the highest position that you can occupy is the position of the Foreign Secretary of India. So our current external affairs minister was once the Foreign Secretary of India. So it is the head of all the diplomats, all the IFS officers. Okay, and there are various posts that you can work in once you enter the foreign service. You will be associated with the Foreign Affairs or the External Affairs Ministry, as well as you will be associated with various international fora, including the UN and other organizations. So which rank, somebody has asked, which rank do you need to get into the Indian Foreign Service? Okay, so usually if you belong to the general category, you would need a rank within 100 or 110. Okay, so that is that is the trend usually. So because in the open merit category, there are usually around 72 seats for the Indian Administrative Service, and there are around 12 seats for the Foreign Service. So usually, most of the people prefer the Administrative Service as the first option, but there are some who prefer for the who opt for the Indian Foreign Service. So usually, you need a rank within 100 or within 110 if you decide to make it into the Foreign Service. If you are belonging to an OBC category, then even a rank within, let's say, 160 or 200 would get you into the Foreign Service. And if you belong to the SC or ST categories, you can make it into the Foreign Service even with ranks within the 300 mark or the 250 mark, and even within the 350 mark. So this again, it changes every year because every year the number of vacancies might be different. So usually it is around 30 the vacancies in the Indian Foreign Service, and there will not be any major upheaval with regard to this, but then there might be like yearly changes to this. So which service is the hardest to get? Another question. So as I said, the most desired services are the Indian Administrative Service, the IAS, Indian Foreign Service, the IFS, and as well as the Indian Police Service. So these three are the most sought after services. If you take any aspirant or any rank holder and you check out their preferences, so we have to give a detailed list of our preferences in order. So which is your first preference, second preference, third preference, so on. You'll have to give till your 25th preference because there are like 25 services. So you'll have to arrange all those services in your order of preference. And normally the first, second, and third preferences are IAS, IFS, and the IPS. So these tend to be the services which are the hardest to get. After that, it is the Indian Revenue Service, IRS services related to the income tax as well as the customs and central excise, so taxation related services. So those are also really prestigious services. And after the big three, the IAS, IFS, and the IPS, the revenue service is most desired. Okay. So I guess. Okay, somebody has asked a very interesting question. How much? What is the percentage of women who make it into the civil services? Okay, so that is a really interesting question because from the state of Kerala, almost half the people who clear the exam are women. So I prepared for the examination from Trivandrum, which is the capital of Kerala, and so at preparation as well as during interactions with other rank holders and all, we find that like almost half the people who qualify are women. But then when I went for the civil service interview, when I had appeared for the interview at Delhi in February, there were like 35 students, so 36 students in our batch who were scheduled to have their interviews in the afternoon session on the day that I was having my interview. Okay, so when I went there, I found that out of the 36 people who were there were just 2 women. There were just 2 young ladies, and the remaining 34 of us were men or male. So that amazed me. So on the whole, when you examine the statistics as well, last year around 759 people were recommended for the services, and in that only 182 were women. So right now, if you take the data and if you observe or analyze it, you would find that the representation of women is a bit low. It's not at the desirable level. But then there is definitely an increase in this, and a lot of women are also preparing now these days. So I think for the past 4-5 years or the past decade, you can see a renewed push into this sector, and a lot of people, lakhs of people, are preparing for the examination. And now the numbers are definitely like set to rise because there are a lot of women who are taking the examination. But at the moment, we do not have as many women as we would desire in the civil services. Okay, so the police service. The police service, as I told you, is another most desirable service among the civil services in India. So you get to become you start out as the assistant superintendent of police of a district. So the topmost police officer in a district is usually the superintendent of the police, SP. Okay. You as an Indian IPS officer, Indian Police Service officer, you start out as an assistant superintendent of the police. Like you start out as an ASP. Okay, and within 4 to 5 years or within 6 years, you will become the you will get promoted to a higher rank, and within 10 years, you will be the topmost police official in a district. Okay, so not only that, Indian police service officers get a lot more chances to go on deputation, to be associated with the premier investigative as well as what is intelligence agencies in the country. So whether it be the research and analysis wing, the RAW, or the intelligence bureau, or the National Security Advisor's Office, or when associated with international investigative organizations such as the Interpol. It is these IPS officers that get the responsibility to represent India in these bodies or to be part of these organizations. So the IPS again is a service which offers a lot of potential to youngsters. Okay, and Arvind Kejriwal. So I guess many of you might already know who he is. So he is one of the most famous politicians in India right now. The Chief Minister of Delhi. He has been elected for the third term. Last year, this year, he was elected for his third term as the Chief Minister of Delhi, and he was an Indian Revenue Service official. So he was an alumnus of the Indian Institute of Technology at Kharagpur, and then he went on to become an Indian Revenue Service official. So he had resigned his job before he decided to enter into politics. Okay, the revenue service is, as I told you, one of the other most sought after services when it comes to the civil services. And the revenue, we have two revenue services actually, one for income tax and one for customs and central excise. So in these services, you start out as an assistant commissioner. With the IRS IT, you start out as an assistant income tax commissioner. And in the IRS Customs and Central Excise Service, which is also a separate service, in that as well, you start out as an assistant commissioner. Okay. All right. Okay, so one thing that a lot of people ask is regarding the pay. So how much do you get paid when you start out as a civil servant? Or how much can you expect your pay to rise in like 10 years or 20 years down into the service? So a lot of people have this query. And usually when you start out, now we are following the 7th Pay Commission recommendations. Okay, so as per these recommendations, a civil servant, when he starts out, he will get a basic pay of around 56,000. And it progresses that when you reach like 4 or 5 years of experience, you will be drawing a salary of around 75,000. And within 10 years experience, you will be getting a salary which is more than 100K or more than 1 lakh. And again, this basic pay is excluding all the other perks and other associated facilities that the government will be providing to you. You will obviously have a lot of other facilities, including your conveyance, your residential expenses, and all those things. But moreover, you see, there are people who graduate from IITs. There are people who graduate from the IIMs or graduate from the premium medical institutes in our country, and after that, they turn up for the civil service examination. So these are people who are getting packages of 30 lakh or 50 lakh per annum packages right when they graduate, when they finish college. But then these people turn up and discarding these job offers, they turn up and they appear for the civil services. So what is the reason for that? So while it might appear obnoxious to some people, the fact that these people are discarding all these high paying jobs and coming towards the civil services, which obviously do not pay as much as these other services. But the fact is that a lot of people are attracted towards these services or this career because it offers you that immense scope to give back to society and to do actually something that is worth it. So that I think almost everybody who's preparing for this examination has come into this sphere or this career because they want to make a difference and they want to do something positive, not just ensure mere financial security, but as well contribute to society as well. So there is definitely the prestige that comes along with this job and the ability to do something concrete, to do something positive, to make some change in the life of people. Okay, so that is the main reason for why this exam pulls so many people. Like around 1 million people take this examination, and that explains the numbers, despite the pay not being at par with the institutions in the private sector. Although, like, definitely you are getting a decent pay, you will have a definite financial security, you will have a good pay, you will have all the facilities that you need. But it's not about the pay. When it comes to the civil service, it's about what you can go back to society. And then, of course, there is the stability of your employment. So, as Benson sir was mentioning earlier, the public sector is resistant to almost all economic stresses. So, the chances of you being thrown out once you're in the civil services are very small, very narrow. And even there's this thing that some people say, okay, when you are working in the civil service, you might end up working for a government which might not respect your wishes or respect your values. But then at the end of the day, no government, no state government can dismiss a civil servant. So the most that a state government can do is like suspend a civil servant. To dismiss a civil servant is one of the most toughest things that can be done in India, because to get into the civil services definitely a really tough task, but it is achievable. You need to put in a lot of effort. You need to put in a lot more effort to dismiss a civil servant from his job, because at the end of the day, it is the president of India who has to sanction this dismissal. So all civil servants in India, the Group A services, as well as the All India services that I mentioned to you earlier, so all those people who are in those services are appointed by the president. You will get an appointment order by the president of India, and since the president is appointing you, the president itself should dismiss you if the need arises. That again is a very tedious task, and so with this career path, you have a tremendous amount of job security, apart from the fact that you can contribute immensely towards the society. So yeah, there were a few questions. I think I'll address a few of those questions before I move forward. Okay. There are a long list of questions. So please mention what you did while you were in school. Okay, definitely I will mention that. Is there anything else that is new to learn as the exam will be taken again? What are the problems? Does the Indian Armed Forces work with the IAS? Okay, no, the armed forces, the recruitment to the armed forces and all, it is happening through different examinations. But then when you are in the IAS, obviously you might end up working with the Ministry of Defense. So in that capacity, you might have to be associated with the armed forces. And also, if you are appointed in a particularly sensitive areas within the territory of India, where there is a significant armed force presence, then you will have to associate with the armed forces. So apart from that, under normal circumstances, if you are in the IAS, you will have to associate with the armed forces, mostly if you are appointed to the Ministry of Defense. So it is the IAS officers who are appointed in all central government ministries as the secretaries to the various ministries. So you have to you have to be associated with the military officials. So one of you have asked an interesting question. What about the things that you can do if you are in school right now? Okay, that is a very good question. I was also meaning to speak about that to you. See, I told you I started my preparation in 2013. By the time I was just finishing my high school. So the first thing that I did was I read about the examination. I tried to get myself acquainted with the syllabus, okay, and the entire examination process. So this is one thing that you can do also. It is a good way to start out. Figure out how the examination is. Okay. So I will also speak to you about that later on. So as I mentioned earlier, it's a three level process. You have the prelims, you have the mains, you have the interview. Okay. So and if you examine the syllabus, you might get tensed a bit, but no, still it's not all that tedious. Once you start studying for this examination, you will understand that although their syllabus is quite comprehensive, it is manageable. You can cover the syllabus adequately if you put in the required hard work and show that required consistency. So I'll tell you what you can do while you are in school or while you are in college. Okay. So this might not seem like a really tedious task when you are preparing while you are in school or college. So what you're basically doing is that you're setting the groundwork. Okay. Somebody's texted. Suresh has asked if he can ask a question. Okay, please type down your question in the chat box, Mr. Suresh. Yeah, audio. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Anyway, I would like to congratulate you on your efforts of becoming an
I'm sorry, sir, but your
very
audio is not clear. I can't hear you clearly. I think there is some tech.
clear now?
Hello. No, I'm sorry, but the audio is not clear.
Are you able to hear? I mean, is it possible? I mean, are you clear now? Is it audible?
No, your sound is really low. I can hear something, but not clearly.
How about now? Is it clear?
Yeah. Go ahead, sir. I can hear you, but still the audio is low.
See, John, my question to you is like, see, many of the students studying in UAE, they are not, they don't know much about India, culture, the diversity, and knowledge about India is a bit very difficult. I mean, don't they really know to know about India, isn't it? Because just doing a graduation won't help. And my other question is, the regional language is important for getting an IES, because most students Hindi as an optional language or Malayalam, and they get the exams. But is it very important to read and write the regional languages to get placed in civil service exams?
Okay. So yeah, sir, I guess your two questions were like one, the fact that many of the students in the UAE might not be much aware about the culture and all those things related to India. So reading upon that, the requirement of that. And then secondly, I think you asked me about the importance of regional languages. So correct me if I'm wrong, because the audio was a bit low. That's why I just repeated your questions. Sorry. So I started with the regional language part. See, when it comes to this examination, so you can take the examination both in English as well as regional language, official regional language of in India, any of the official languages of India. So for most part, people take it in English, but there is a catch here. See, for the second level, when it comes to the civil services mains examination, you have 9 papers that you need to attend. So out of these 9 papers, 2 papers are qualifying papers. Which means that you just need to pass those 2 papers. So these 2 papers are language papers. One will be an English paper. So that paper will be for 300 marks. You need to score 75 marks in that paper. If you score 75 marks, you will pass that paper. They will not calculate it while determining your rank, but you need to get a minimum of 75 marks for that paper. The second qualifying paper, passing paper, is a regional language paper. So you have to attend that paper in any official language of India. So it can be Malayalam, it can be Hindi, it can be Tamil, or it can be Gujarati, anything. So you can opt for that and you need to appear for that paper. That is also for 300 marks. So you need to score a minimum of 75 marks in that. If you do not score 75 marks, you failed that paper and you will not be considered for the rank while preparing the rank list. But you just need to score a minimum of 75. It doesn't matter if you score 76 or if you score 200. It's all the same. Okay. So if you get that 75 marks, you are passed, and they will not calculate those marks for your while determining the rank list. So it's just that you have to pass. So basically, with these language papers, what they're looking for is that you need to have a knowledge of that language so that you will be able to communicate in that language. If you are able to communicate in that language properly, whether it be Hindi or whether it be Malayalam, then you will be able to clear those papers without much practice. So if it's a person who has spent like 4 or 5 years in Kerala and who has been interacting in Malayalam with other people, he will not have much trouble to clear this paper. At most, you will need to have like a little bit of preparation, provided you know to read and write the language. Or if that is not the case, even you can opt for some other language that you are comfortable with. Sometimes many of the students in the UAE might be comfortable with Hindi, even the people from southern states. So that the regional language is important only in that respect. So if you want to take the exam in English, then the only time when you will have to be concerned about the regional languages when it comes to this qualifying paper. So you need to score a minimum of 75 marks out of a total of 300. So that they'll ask you to write an essay, then they'll ask you to translate a passage, all those things, just basic knowledge in that language. So the second thing that you asked is regarding the lack of awareness when it comes to many students. So that was something that I was intending to address through my talk. So I had started off speaking about what you can do while you are in school. So yeah, a lot of high school students, a lot of college students are not that aware about everything that is happening around them, especially when it comes to culture or when it comes to the current affairs, all those things. So the first thing that you can do is to start reading the newspapers. So right here in India, we read the Hindu. So that is basically the Bible when it comes to newspapers for UPSC aspirants. So I'm not sure if the Hindu is available in the Gulf region, but I'm sure that an online copy will obviously be accessible. So reading out the Hindu is the best thing that you can do if you're preparing for the civil service examination and if you're still in your high school or you are still in college. Okay, so that is the first thing that you can do. That is the first thing that I myself did while I started my preparation. So it was by the time I finished high school that I started reading the Hindu. So I always think I should have started reading it a bit more early. So there are people who start reading these papers with this aim of appearing for the civil services right from their high school days, from when they are in 8th or 9th. There are those people. Although they are few, there are definitely those people. Okay, so guys, to all those youngsters out there who are listening and who wish to appear for this examination, the first rule is that start reading the Hindu newspaper. Okay, so I told you should also have a basic understanding of the syllabus of the civil services. Okay, that I will give you a basic overview of that later on. So the first thing that you can do, the rule number 1 for you guys would be to start reading the Hindu newspaper. Okay, and the editorial page, which is the page usually in the center of the newspaper. So that is a very important page when it comes to civil services preparation. So every day, if you get your hands on the newspaper, the first thing that you should do is go to the editorial section. Okay, and read what is there on that page. So mostly on 9 out of 10 times, what is in the editorial page will be relevant for your civil service preparation. So once you know the syllabus, you will also be able to identify which area this topic is coming and how relevant it is. Sorry. Okay, and then keep track of all the latest happenings related to international affairs as well as in Indian affairs and all those things. Okay. Secondly, you can start developing the habit of reading. I don't know how many of you are already into reading, but as Suresh sir pointed out, there is a lot of us tend to be unaware about a lot of stuff, especially related to our culture and all those things. Okay, and happening. So even I myself was not that aware about things while I was in high school and all. But once I decided that I will be taking this examination, I also decided that I should prepare myself. I should be more aware of the different topics that are relevant to me. So this examination is a generalist examination. It's not something that they're not looking for specialists. They're not looking for super specialties or any special skills in one domain. If you examine the syllabus, you will find that there are topics under history, there are topics under geography, there are topics under Indian polity and governance, there are topics under environment. So all these things come under the syllabus. So if I go on, there will be a long list of topics which I can dictate right now. So, but don't get tense hearing these topics, because the UPSC, the exam conducting body, is not looking for a postgraduate level knowledge, a master's level knowledge in these subjects. They're definitely not looking for that. They're looking for a general idea. You should have a general idea about the topics which are in the syllabus. So you should have a general idea about Indian history, a general idea about Indian polity, a general idea about the geography of our country and world geography as such. Okay, so to start towards creating such an idea, you can start reading books and cultivate that habit of reading. So you can start off with books which are easy to read. If you are not into reading right now, I would suggest The Alchemist, which is one of the most beautiful books to be written, and it's also one of the most easiest books to read. If you're not already into this habit of reading, start picking books which are easy to read and complete, like The Alchemist or Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things and all. But if you're already into the habit of reading, I would suggest that you start reading some non-fiction books, which can be helpful for your examination. So one book that I would suggest is Freedom at Midnight, written by Dominic Lapierre and Larry Collins. So it basically discusses India's certain parts of India's freedom struggle, as well as the happenings during in the immediate aftermath of our country achieving independence. So what it does is that it gives you an insight about modern Indian history and about the history of the freedom struggle. So this topic is extremely relevant for our civil service examination. And there are standard textbooks that deal with this. But when you're in school or when you're in college, reading Freedom at Midnight will obviously be more appealing to you, because the way it is written, it's written like a novel. It's written like a thriller. So you will not feel that you are reading a textbook when you're reading this book. Okay. So that is one of the suggestions that I could do. Somebody asked me for suggestions, reading suggestions. So this one is a good suggestion. It will help you for the examination preparation as well. Then there is Manu S. Pillai's Rebel Sultans. The book is basically dealing with a major part of India's medieval history. Okay, so that again it's written with a great deal of to provide a great deal of entertainment as well. So although it is not a standard textbook, while you are in school or college, it will be immensely helpful for you if you start reading such books, which are entertaining, but at the same time they are helpful for your exam preparation. Okay, and slowly you can develop this habit of reading, and once you are once it's synced in, you can start reading the textbooks itself, which are used for civil services preparation. So many of these textbooks are read by students right from their high school or high secondary days. And okay, so those are the things that you can start right now. The first two important things that I would suggest is start reading the newspaper, and secondly, you can start developing the habit of reading if you're not already into it. So there are a few more questions, but I'm sorry, I'll take the questions after I just finish. Since I think there is a sort of time constraint as well. Okay, so I'll definitely come back to the questions in a few minutes. Okay. All right. Oh, okay. And now the third thing that you can do, that a lot of people are actually doing right now, is to chart out your own plan right now. See, don't think that I'm going to take this examination only 6 years from now, or 5 years from now, or 4 years from now. Okay. See, the competition is pretty immense. There are many people who say that civil service is too competitive, you are definitely not going to get into it. But there's no truth in that. See, definitely it is competitive. Okay, it is definitely tough. It is going to be a hard task to clear this examination, but it's not undoable. It's not something that can't be achieved. It is definitely something which can be achieved. And at the end of the day, the formula is quite simple. You need to be aware about what you need to do. First of all, you need to be aware of the syllabus. You need to be aware of the approach that you need to take. Okay. And secondly, you need to have that ability to put in the required hard work and to consistently put in that required hard work. See, if you take the case of the people who make the rank list, who end up getting the top ranks, 9 out of 10 among these people are those who are taking this exam on their second attempt, or their third attempt, or their fourth attempt. Okay. So preparing for this examination is a long-term process. Even if you clear it in your first attempt, you basically end up preparing for 1 year, because the examination itself is 1 year. So the preparation for it will definitely be as long. Okay. Okay. So you need to start preparing as early as possible. So if you start your preparation when you are in high school or when you are in college, you're actually taking one step and putting it forward, while the lakhs of people who are going to compete with you are staying behind. Okay, many people start thinking about civil services only when they come to the end of their college days. Okay, but now you people who are aware about it, more aware, who are getting to hear these things about the examination. So if you have a genuine interest in this, if you think that you should pursue this, then start early. Okay, it doesn't matter if you are 17 or if you are 14 or if you are 12 or even if you are 10. If you are aware about this and if this is what you think would be good for you, take those early steps. And most importantly, start reading the Hindu newspaper. Start reading the newspaper. That is the one rule that you cannot neglect if you are in school or college. Okay, and even if you, with a bit of groundwork and with a bit of understanding, you can start what do you say? You can start reading the textbooks themselves which are relevant to this examination, and there are also like programs that you could enroll in. Now, Race to IAS, I am associated with Race to IAS. I mentioned earlier that I am a faculty. So the foundation programs that are being held are also like value added programs which can actually provide impetus to these youngsters who are preparing for the examination. Okay, so what you basically do at a foundation course is that you are given a basic understanding of the entire examination process, and you are given an understanding about the syllabus and about how to approach it. Okay, so at each level there are going to be different challenges when it comes to this examination. So when it comes to the preliminary stage, with the preliminary stage, there are around 1 million people who apply for this examination. So around 10 lakh people apply for it at the preliminary stage. And the preliminary stage is basically a screening stage. Okay, so it's a, what do you say, a pen and paper test. All the two levels are pen and paper tests, the first two levels. And it is like an objective in nature. So you have 100 questions, and you will be given 4 options for each question. So it's an OMR based examination. And around 10,000 to 12,000 candidates out of this 1 million people get through to the next level based on the results of the preliminary examination. So for the preliminary examination, you have a detailed syllabus, and yeah, I'll just show you that syllabus as well. So, just give me a second. Okay, so yeah, I'll just give you a brief overview about how this examination works. Okay. So the first level is the prelims, which is an objective examination. So around 1 million, 10 lakh, 1 million or 10 lakh people appear for this examination, and it's just a screening test. The marks that you score in prelims are not going to be relevant after prelims. So based on those marks, you will get selected, or you will not be selected for mains. So the top performers in prelims get through to mains. But from that point onwards, your prelims marks becomes irrelevant. It doesn't matter if you clear the cutoff with 0.66 marks, or if you clear with 20 marks, because at the end of the day, the prelims marks are just for screening. Prelims is a screening test. Once it's done, around like 12,000 or 10,000 people get selected for the mains examination. A mains examination, descriptive examination. We will go into detail about it. And then finally, from the mains, from those 10,000 to 12,000 people who appear for the mains, around 2,000 people or 3,000 people are selected for an interview. So the interview will be held at the UPSC, Union Public Service Commission headquarters in Delhi. Okay, and out of these 2,000 to 3,000 people who appear for the interview, around 800 or 1,000 people make the rank list. So this year, around 829 people made the rank list. Okay, so this is the basic outline. Okay, and when it comes to prelims, you have 2 papers. Okay, paper 1 and paper 2. But paper 2 is just a passing paper. So you just have, I mentioned about the language paper earlier. When it comes to mains, you have the language papers as qualifying papers or passing papers. In the first level, the preliminary stage, you have this second paper, which is basically an aptitude paper. So there will be questions related to mathematics, related to logic, arithmetic, and all those stuff. Okay, so in this paper, it will be out of 200 marks, and you need to score 66.66 marks, 1/3 of the marks. If you score that, you have passed this paper, and then it becomes irrelevant. You just have to pass it. If you fail the paper, you will be like disqualified for this examination. Okay, so this does not determine your ranking or anything. The second paper, you just have to pass it. Okay. The first paper, paper 1, the GS paper 1. So this is the all important paper when it comes to the preliminary examination. So on your screen, you can see the syllabus. So you will have topics related to history, topics related to the constitution, the governance, etc. You'll have topics related to geography, topics related to what environment, science and technology and all those things. Okay, so all it is basically a test for what 200 marks, and every question 100 questions will be there, so 2 marks for each questions. And both these papers are MCQ papers. So somebody has asked that question. Yeah, definitely both these papers are what do you say, MCQ questions papers. But the second paper will not be counted for your for the competition. You will just have to pass it. If you fail it, you will be disqualified. But you just have to get the minimum marks. It's your marks in the first paper which determine whether you move on to the next stage or not. Okay. So the mains examination, I will just quickly go through it. It consists of 9 papers. Okay. So 2 papers, as I mentioned earlier, the language papers are just qualifying papers. So it will be just, you just have to pass those papers. It will be out for 300 marks, and you need to score 75 marks each minimum. And then you have 7 papers which are the scoring papers. It is based on these 7 papers that you like your advancement in this examination will be determined. So the marks that you score, so it's like 250 marks for each paper, so a total of 1750 marks. So based on that marks, they will determine whether you will be selected for the interview or not. Okay. Okay. All right. And finally, in the interview stage is at 275 marks. Okay, for 275 marks, and in that stage, the marks that you score for the interview will be added to the marks that you score for the mains examination. Okay, and it is based on that cumulative number that the rank list will be prepared. So the marks that you score in these 7 papers of mains will be added to the marks that you score for the interview, and then the final rank list will be prepared. This is how it goes. So you will be getting this PDF, I guess, or this presentation. Unique World will be providing this to you. So this is just a basic overview of the different topics in each paper. The first paper is an essay paper. You will just have to write 2 essays, 1 essay for 125 marks, and like that you will have 2 papers, 2 essays in that paper. And the second, the 4 other papers are general studies papers. So this again, it is related to each paper has a specific syllabus. The first paper is related to Indian history, geography, and society. Second one is related to governance and the constitution, international relations, and related subjects. Third one is related to science and technology, economics, all this. Okay. So this again, you can go through it once you get it. And 2 papers you will have to select 1 optional subject. Now I mentioned that for all the other parts of the examination, you do not require a master's level knowledge in the domain. Okay, yeah, you need a general idea about all the topics. But when it comes to the optional papers, what happens is that you need to have a degree to a bachelor's degree to a master's degree level knowledge in this particular optional subject that you are choosing. Okay, so a lot of people choose the subjects that they pursue for their graduation, but but there are equal number of people okay, who choose subjects that they have not studied up to this point. Okay, all right. Okay, so optional papers can be chosen based on your liking and based on your interest in a subject. Okay, there are people who choose subjects that they have never studied in their life, and they ended up making the rank list as well. I chose political science and international relations. I did my graduation in physics, but I chose political science as my optional subject. Okay, I told you about the personality testers. So this is how the basically the entire scheme of these exams. And there's also a book list, a suggested book list for the preparation. This will also be provided to you. So basically, this is the overview of the examination, and this is what happens. And this is how the process of recruitment is. So one thing that a lot of people tend to ask, I'll just say that and come to the end of our session, is that what happened, does this preparation help you in some other domain? Okay, preparing for the civil services, the odds are definitely, the chance of getting in are low compared to it. There a lot of people appear, a lot of people don't make it. Okay, but then people who work with consistency obviously end up in the list. So, but there is a doubt among many people regarding the fact of whether this preparation will be helpful in some other domain. Okay, so realize this, that this is the most toughest, government recruiting examination in India. Okay, so it doesn't get tougher than this, at least when it comes to government recruitment. So whatever you learn here, you learn in a comprehensive manner, and whatever program you enroll for preparation or all that, you will be taught things in a really comprehensive manner. So covering various domains. So you get an idea. You will definitely, if you prepare seriously for this examination, you will definitely get an idea about the major, about a lot of major subjects, a lot of major current affairs related happenings. So this, when you take a look at all the other government examinations that are happening in India, the syllabus is similar to a grade D in many examinations. Okay, but the questions or the questioning pattern may not be as tough as the civil service. Okay, so what you're preparing here right now, it can help. It can definitely help you while you prepare for some other examination. Okay, so because you will, provided that you prepare for it in a very comprehensive manner, provided that you put in that consistency, then it will be helpful for you, because you obviously, people who are preparing for civil services will not find it much difficult to prepare for other examinations. That entire learning ability will be enhanced. Okay, so that is one thing that I want to tell you. But so keep that in mind. But that doesn't mean that just preparing for this exam is going to help you clear some other examination. Don't think like that. But whatever you do here will definitely improve your awareness. It will improve your skills in a wide variety of areas. It will improve your communication skills if you're preparing for interview and all those things. It will improve your intellectual skills as well. Okay. So yeah, somebody, one more question on IPS. I think I've basically come to the end of my thing. So Suresh sir, please go ahead.
Just one more question. When you get sent for IPS, normally for police service there is some physical test to be passed. But when people are attending for administrative and the rank wise, when they get to police service, how is physically fitness involved in this kind of program for IPS services? Because not all people will be just out or 6 feet or just wide. So how are they tested IPS?
Yeah, sir. I think I get your question. Okay, still your voice is audible, but like, let me say once more. I think you were asking about the physical requirements for the Indian police service, right? Okay. So what happens is that once you take the interview for the civil services, the very next day you will have a medical test. Okay. So for the police service, there are like the physical requirements are not very not too high. The bar is not too high. Once you clear this examination and get the rank, there are just minimum requirements that you need to possess. So there is a criteria regarding height. You need to have a minimum height of so on. So it varies for gents as well as females. So you have to have a minimum height. You have to have a desirable body mass index count, BMI count, and you should not have any color blindness or visual impairment. Okay, so these are just minimum physical standards which are needed. So if you have those minimum standards, you will be eligible for the police service. But if you have color blindness or something like that, I have color blindness, so you do not become eligible for the police service. There are about 4 or 5 technical services where physical standards come into play. So for all the other services, physical standards are almost irrelevant. But when it comes to IPS as well as certain other services such as the Pondicherry police service, which is also part of this examination, and the railway police service, which has certain posts which are taken through this examination, you will obviously need to meet certain physical standards. But those physical standards are not hard to meet. Okay. All right.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a question. So,
yeah, go ahead.
Is the effort really worth it after you secure the job? Like the efforts it takes to clear the exams and go through all the processes, you're wasting like almost a year. And is this really worth it after you secure the job?
Okay. So obviously, it does take a lot of effort to go into this examination, but to enter into this career. So yeah, if you ask me, is it worth it? Obviously, I would say it is worth, because this has been my dream since high school. So that, and these questions about is it worth it or not, it will depend. Definitely, it will vary based on who you're asking this question to. So if you're a person who wants to contribute something to society, who wants to actually be in a position where you can make some difference. I'm not saying that you're going to change the entire system or how the country is run and all, but then if you want the opportunity to make some difference, and if you want to create some positive influence, then definitely this is worth it. Okay, you will definitely get your satisfaction from this job, and you will you will also get your minimum, you get your financial security, you do end up getting a decent pay and all. But moreover, no, I don't think anybody comes to this just because of the pay or the perks. It's about the ability to make a change, to make a difference, and to do something positive. So in that respect, if that is your calling, if you want something more than just a job, if you want something to do something positive, then definitely it is worth it. Okay. Sorry, I think Benson sir, are you there?
I'm here too.
Yeah. I think you can go for questions if we have time.
Yeah, actually, it's been 1 hour 15 minutes that you are talking, and even you are answering all the questions in between. So, is there any specific questions other than what you have talked right now? And before going to some questions, I'll just like summarize a few things. Many had asked when to prepare, how to prepare. See, I think like John sir also will agree that earlier the better, right? Obviously.
Definitely.
So if we can start preparation today, then that's the best thing. So that is the reason why we are creating this kind of platform to make sure that the students in Middle East get the enough opportunity to understand about the requirements for the civil service examination and what are the things that you have to prepare. So John sir clearly mentioned which newspaper to read and all those things. Right now, we along with, you may have seen Race to IAS logo in the presentation and all. So Unique Education, I'm so proud to say that we had associated with Race to IAS. It is one month we have been associated legally to start the civil service orientation program for school students and college students and working professionals in Middle East. So that's the happy news for the NRI parents. We are focusing, it's a dedicated batch for like the Middle East students, and so happy to just tell that, and I'll be explaining about that later after your questions. So if anyone have some questions, we can have maximum 3 questions right now because the time is actually I have told parents that we have 1 hour, then we'll have a QA, but like in between parents had asked many questions, so it went to 1 hour 20 minutes. So if you have any questions, you can shoot 3 questions. Those 3 questions we'll be answering, and after that we'll be winding up the session.
I have one question actually. So can you hear my voice?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. So as you mentioned that now, I mean, you got some rank and you still want to prepare for to improve your ranking. So I believe that what rank you achieved will be, it will be as it is, and when you will again prepare for the exam. So, and how long that rank will sustain? And suppose if in future if your rank do not improve, whether that earlier rank will still valid or how it is?
Okay. So a lot of people end up in my predicament. So where they make the rank list, but they still want to take the exam again to improve their rank and to get a service that they deserve. So with the rank that I've got now, I will definitely get some Group A service. Okay. So usually what happens is that the results are announced in the month of April or May. Okay. And then the next year's prelims takes place just 1.5 months or 2 months after that. Okay. So the training for the people who have cleared the exam, that usually begins only by October or September. Okay. And when the training begins itself, the first 3 months of the training can be skipped. It is a foundation course. So you can skip that foundation course and you can attend it at some point within the next 2 to 3 years. Okay. So what that does is that even if you make the rank list, you can give one more attempt before you start your training. Okay, so basically you can attend the prelims and then you can attend the mains, and then you can go to your academy and report for training. That is how usually the training timetables are structured. Okay, so in my case this year also I will be, in all likelihood, I will get that option to skip the initial 3-month period of training. And then if I clear the prelims and appear for the mains, I will be able to, go and report for my training after I had given my next mains examination. Okay, with this rank, I will get one service and I will be able to report for training for that service. And before that, I will be able to give one more attempt at this examination up to the mains level. And if I clear the mains examination, then definitely the academy where I am going to be at, the training center where I will be, they will definitely provide leave to attend the interview. So this rank is valid only for this year, but you can join the service that you're getting right now, and you can still prepare and still appear for the examination, even while you are undergoing training, or even while you have like actually finished your training in some other service. Last year's first rank holder, was actually a person who was a Indian Revenue Service officer. So in one of his previous attempts, he had cleared the examination and got into the Indian Revenue Service, and he had actually started working as well. But then again, he took the examination. Okay, so the rank is valid only 1 year, but what people do is that they enroll, they report, they take up the service that they are allotted, and then they prepare again. Okay, I believe I have addressed your question.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, go on.
Like in the MCQ papers, as you mentioned, like in the preliminary and the mains examination, do we have the negative markings also?
Yeah. Okay, very good question. You do have negative marking. So it's like for the first paper, the scoring paper, you get 2 marks for every right answer. You lose 2/3 marks for every wrong answer. So you end up losing 0.66 marks for every wrong answer. Okay, for the first paper. So there is negative marking. And even for the second paper, there is negative marking.
Thank you.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, if you are chosen for IAS in this exam, will you take the exam again to improve your ranking?
If you are allotted the IAS in any year, or if you are allotted the Indian Foreign Service, so IAS or IFS, if you get that, then you are not allowed to take the examination again. So basically that's, and normally everybody who gets a person who gets the IAS or IFS does not take the exam again, because that is what is usually decided.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
I have seen a couple of mock interviews in YouTube and Facebook.
I'm sorry, but I can't hear whoever's speaking right now. The voice is
Sir, it is very it's not clear proper. Your voice is not that proper.
Is it clear now?
Very difficult.
Hello.
Sir, can you send a in the chat box so that we can read it out and we can answer the question?
Okay, is it not audible now?
It is a low volume, but I can hear something about what you're saying, but not completely. Sir, just go ahead. We'll try.
Okay, I have seen a couple of videos of mock interview. So
Okay.
how was your experience when you went for the board? How was it? Because you will be normally grilled by many executives. They'll be asking volley of questions. So how will you interview experience to the board?
Okay. So personally, I had started taking efforts to improve my public speaking skills or my communication skills right from my high school or higher secondary days. Because as I told you, I was aware that about the structure of this examination. So I knew that the final stage would definitely be the interview stage. So I needed to know how to speak properly. So because of those things, I had joined the debate society in my college, and I had enrolled for whatever public speaking event that came my way. Okay. So by the time I had been selected for the interview, I was not afraid to speak as such. And then I did attend a number of mock interviews, both in Trivandrum as well as in Delhi. Okay, so before my I had gone a week early to Delhi, and I had attended 3 mock interviews in Delhi at the various coaching institutes there, and I had attended around 6 or 7 mock interviews at Thiruvananthapuram. So these, what you see in these mock interviews, a lot of these institutes post these videos on YouTube. So basically, that is how the actual interview takes place as well. So you will have 5 people. So we will have a board consists of 5 people, interview board, and there will be a chairman. The chairman is a member of the Union Public Service Commission, and the remaining 4 members will be top bureaucrats. There might be former foreign service officials, former IAS officials, or there might be sitting officials, or there might also be like top level academicians like vice chancellors or researchers, all those things. So when you go there, you can expect questions based on current affairs. You can also expect questions based on yourself, because you are going to give a detailed application form consisting of all the relevant information about yourself: where you studied, where you were born, where you were brought up, where you resided, what your interests are, what your achievements were in high school or college, where you went to college to, if you have any job experience there. So the interview board has all that data. So they can ask you anything and everything about what is on that application form that you submit to them. Okay, and then they can ask you something related to current affairs as well. So the thing is that if you are a young candidate, as my case was, they tend to go a bit easy on you. I'm not saying that this reflects in the evaluation, but the questions that they ask tend to be a lot more personal. So this I was told by many of my seniors. They told me that since you're like 22, you might not get that tough questions. They might ask you mostly questions related to your personal affairs or what you have given on that form. So when I went, my interview was for 30 minutes, but they didn't ask me anything related to current affairs. Almost everything that they asked me was related to what was on my application form. They asked me about my hometown of Alappuzha, about Kerala. So then I think it was because I was from Kerala that they asked me about the Gulf region. So how important is the Gulf region to Indians? And then they asked me about my optional subject, political science and international relations. And then they asked me certain questions, philosophical questions, and also certain practical questions, real life situations. If you were entrusted with the responsibility of a public office, what would you do to improve the efficiency of this office? All those things. So it was 30 minutes long, around 32 questions were asked. And most of those questions were related to my own interest. So I had put down the reading as my hobby, reading fiction and magical realism. So they asked me about that and all those things. So the interview was not really something that gave me nightmares, but it was really what you said, completely new experience, a really challenging experience. And yeah, I do have a fond memory of it.
Thank you, John sir, for patiently listening to all the questions and clearing the doubts. I believe Mr. Jinto Mathew as well as Mohammad Shakir, both of you are here. So since I was listening to a lot of questions, actually the reason why I called out two persons' name, Mr. Mohammad Shakir is the Executive Director of Unicol Education, and Jinto Mathew sir is the CEO of Race to IAS. Actually, these two organizations are jointly going to conduct the coaching over here in Middle East. So, so with both of your permission, can I give an offer to the participants who are attending right now? One thing, because there are a lot of questions that is coming. So I think you have told me that there will be a batch of 40 students. So can we have one more demo session for those who really were interested to know more about this kind of examination, how to prepare? If that is allowed, Mr. Shakir sir and Jinto sir, are you there? If you can just unmute and permit me, can I go ahead with that? There is one more session where those interested to start their preparation during their school time or the college time, can they attend one more demo session where we can have, no, the number will be less. Number can be limited to 30 or 40 so that we can answer everyone's question and they can be very clear on how to start their preparation. So Jinto sir, are you here? Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Just continue.
So yeah. So how is the session fine? We will have one regarding those who are interested to start their preparation during their school time itself, because many had asked that question.
Okay, what is the problem in that?
Oh, perfectly. Great. So I think you have parents, you have the number of you have got message from Unicol Education regarding the seminar. So those are really interested to know how to start preparing, because even in Facebook, one person had asked why it should be the Hindu, why it is not the New Indian Express. Okay, well, why should we read the Hindu? And so there are a number of questions. So I want the parents to be very clear. And I think John sir, I think if the students over here in Middle East, if they prepare from the beginning as early as possible, they can also easily clear, right? What do you feel?
Yes, definitely. As I mentioned earlier in my talk, start as early as you can. It doesn't matter if you're 10 or if you're 12, if you're 13. If you have identified that this is your career, then just if you want to pursue something like this, start early.
Thank you so much, John sir. So because time is running out, it's 1 hour 30 minutes. So I just want to wind this session up. So once again, I'm telling the parents, if you are interested to no, if you're really interested, because civil service is not the only examination. I think the same syllabus is covering more than 500, 600 examinations, other government examination, for example, Reserve Bank of India, Central Bureau of Investigation. This kind of examination also have the same syllabus of the CSAT examination, right, John sir? The basic.
Yeah, definitely. The CSAT examination and all, like all the stuff that you learn here, it can be helpful for you while you're preparing for these other examinations, as Benson's are pointing out right now, especially the RBI examination or other central government recruitment. And now what they're doing is that the people who are appearing for the interview and not making it to the rank list, those people are being considered for appointments to other top level vacancies in other central government undertakings. Seriously, in Gujarat now we are starting an international financial services center. So it is the first international financial services center in India. And the people who are eligible for certain top level appointments in that center are only those who have made it to the interview stage of this year's civil service examination. So there is immense opportunity in that respect as well.
Okay, thank you, John sir. It's 1 hour 31 minutes. So I just once again repeat that those who are really interested, you can send your consent or concern to the number that you have right away. So we'll be hosting one more session, but that will be limited to 40 participants only, because I don't want to have more than, because a lot of questions come, some people miss the questions. So I don't want that to happen. Yes, Rashmi, I know there are a lot of questions. If you have any more questions, yes, please send the message to the number so that everything will be answered. So, Shakir sir and Jido sir, can we wind up the session? Before we wind up, I request any one participant to give a feedback to John sir, because John sir had spent more than 1 hour 30 minutes for us, for the students in Middle East. So I request any one student to give your feedback, unmuting your Zoom platform and talking publicly, please. Who is going to take the chance?
Can I speak, sir?
Yeah, please. What's your name?
Tahani Hashir.
Okay, Tahani, just introduce yourself and go ahead.
Okay, my name is Tahani Hashir. I am here studying in the UAE and I'm in 7th grade right now. I would like to really thank John sir for all the initiative taken. I am sure all of our most of our doubts has been cleared now, and we will be all taking you as our inspiration. And thank you so much for your time, sir. We all congratulate you. All the best.
Thank you, Tahani. Thank you so much. You know, that is a very, very good response from your side. So I am getting few response in chat also, like that you are interested in the next demo session. Please send it to the WhatsApp number after the session. And thank you once again for expressing your interest and participating. We'll be continuously hosting these kind of sessions throughout, we are trying to have it on a weekly basis, but if not, at least twice in a month, we'll be hosting these kind of sessions. You can follow our number. We'll be informing you all the updates that we are having. Our organization name is Unique World Education. We have Facebook. We are in Twitter. We are in LinkedIn. You can follow us. You will get the update. So Unique World Education, along with Race to IAS, is launching a new batch for civil service aspirants in Middle East. Thanking you once again for your participation. So we are winding this session up. Thank you, John sir. Thank you, Jindo sir. Thank you, Mohammad Shakir sir, and everyone who have participated. Have a great day ahead. Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vincent.